Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new show. I'm Parallel Mike from the PM Report over on Substack, and I'm joined today by Andrea Chehi for the first episode of what's going to be a new show we're creating together, where we'll be discussing the most important topics related to gold, silver, real money, and the end of fiat. So, Andrea, for listeners who haven't come across your work before, could you start by just giving them a brief introduction as to who you are and telling them where they can find you?
Thank you, Mike. Yes, you can find me on my Substack. That's how Mike and I met, through my Substack. Just Andrea Cecchi Substack. I wrote 3 books about gold. My passion is like following the monetary cycles. I've been working in the banking for 32 years, and I quit because I didn't like what I was seeing, and I started to tell people, pull the money out of the bank and buy gold because this is gonna end nasty for whomever had savings. That's practically the bottom line of my work, is to try warn people about what's going on. There is not much knowledge about this dynamics, and this is why maybe I developed this passion for following the economic cycles, and this one is particularly entertaining, to say the least.
Well, I'm very excited about this new show together, Andrea. It's great to talk to somebody who's also passionate about real money and understands the history. And on today's show, we've got 2 very interesting topics we're going to cover. The first one is about gold revaluation. So, going into July, I'm sure you're aware of this, but there was a lot of rumors swirling around that for some reason the US was suddenly going to revalue gold. And I'm assuming this was linked to 2 things. The first would be America's 250th birthday. And the second was Donald Trump's repeated inference that America is entering the golden age, which I think some people have taken as a covert signal, if you will, that a gold revaluation is imminent. Now, leaving aside the implausible mechanics of the US being able to somehow revalue gold unilaterally, I think the broader topic of gold revaluation has become increasingly common. It's something we've both covered in our work and something I've written on quite a lot, actually. So, first things first, Andrea, what were your thoughts on this idea that gold could be revalued potentially in July? Did you find it plausible, even just a little bit?
Yes, I find it very plausible. I even wrote a book about it, which is my latest book, where I quote a number like that, the forecast done by the late Jim Sinclair, Mr. Gold. Because Mike, the revaluing an asset is the biggest, the most common trick in the book. When I was in banking, right, and there were companies very bad in the red, like they couldn't really sustain their, they come to the bank to ask for a renewal of the loan, of the credit line. So you get the books and you see that is impossible to sustain that kind of business. So what do? They cook the books, they get the inventory, they revalue the inventory, and they obtain a new like lifeline of credit just by revaluing the inventory. So it's not just something that it comes out of like an impossibility. It's actually a very well renowned trick, to obtain liquidity. You revalue one side of the balance sheet, and the liquidity just squirts out from the other one, and you can spend it. So it is something that who wouldn't want to do that? Because what other way there are? You cannot keep printing currency to this extent. The national debt is now 40 trillion. The interest rate on the national debt on this kind of credit interest rate scenarios that don't seem to be easy to control. It's just too much money that is needed. So the applying a gold revaluation will be a really, really easy, feasible, painless solution to obtain a whole lot of relief in this moment. So I think it is something that can be done, and it's already been done before. It's already been done 3 times in the past. Just now the problem is so immensely bigger that the revaluation has to be in proportion. So I mean, I won't be surprised to see gold spike to some numbers that cannot even imagine. I'm on the cover of my book. That's Jim Sinclair number is 87,500. I share this number with some people, some experts say, "Oh, Andrea, you've been conservative. It's going to go much higher than that." But then nobody knows. Like Frank Justra says, just throw a number there. What I know is that gold is the asset to be now because it's what everything rotates around. Central banks, all this, all the talk, even the digital work revolves around gold. And I saw that article you just posted. That is really fundamental. It's really I call it Lexio Magistralis. Everybody should read it, memorize it, study it, because that's the shape of the future. So thank you, Mike, for sharing that.
Well, I appreciate that, Andrea. Thanks. We'll discuss that a little bit more in part number two when we talk about Tether. But going back to gold revaluation, yeah, I think the idea that the US could unilaterally revalue gold, I think is incorrect. I think it would take something like an international agreement similar to Bretton Woods in 1944, where everybody sat around a table and they said, okay, the old system's broken. And to fix it, we're going to revalue gold at a much higher level. And I think ultimately that's where it goes to. I think that's why the central banks are buying record amounts of gold. They're getting ready for something like that. But I was a little bit dubious about the July gold revaluation story just because I thought it was a little bit clickbait. And I don't know if it serves the US right now to have gold revalued, because if they did it right now, the best the US could do is just revalue the gold on their own balance sheet, unless they had that international agreement. And if they did that, they could revalue their gold holdings. I think they're currently listed at $42.22 per troy ounce. That figure's not changed since 1973. So, of course, if they mark their gold holdings to market, it does create that massive fiscal space on the balance sheet, like you said. But I don't think it fixes anything. I think gold has to go much higher, maybe upwards of $100,000 an ounce. Who knows? To fix this system, it's going to take a much higher level than we've currently got. So, I'd love to just hear your take on that. Andrea, do you think that it's going to happen with some kind of Bretton Woods type moment? And how close do you think we are to that? Is it imminent? Is it 2 years? Is it 10 years? I guess timescales are important here too.
Yes, yes, we are really in the realm of imagining, right? But then sometimes you have to have you have to also go back in the history and see how things were done. And you see, when Nixon announced the closing of the gold window, it was kind of improvised. Like nobody was expecting it to happen, but there were the symptoms that were in the air that something was going to happen because France had started to repatriate the gold. So now what we're seeing is we have all the ingredients for a gold revaluation. We just don't know when the announcement will be made, but it's true that it has to be a coordinated event because everybody uses the US dollar. Like we've had what is it, more than 80 years of a dollar denominated world. The dollar is like the sand, the little grains of sand that are clogging the economic engines of the entire globe. But then you cannot really take them out. You cannot take out the dollar of the paradigm. No, nobody wants that. Nobody needs that. It's so immense, the number of dollar denominated assets. You have bonds with issued in US dollars that have 100 years expiration date. So how can you resettle that? The reset will be so painful. So the revaluation could also be a step by step. It doesn't have to be just one revaluation done once. It could be progressive ones. They try, let's say, revalue it to the market value now, and that will provide an effect. Then from then on, just have a progressive revaluation. The thing is that they want to play this game in a way that they win and everybody else is lose. So there will be a constant, I think, a constant propaganda to try convince people to get rid of their gold, especially when they see that it gets revalued. They say, "Oh, this is the time of your life to sell it," because then it will be much easier for a control-based system not to have too many private individuals owning gold. That's why I always try to point out the importance that it doesn't matter who has the most gold reserves. It's what your own personal reserves are. Because if you see a game and you don't have any chips to play in that game, that means if you there is a game based on gold, and you don't have any gold, you're not allowed to play. That is the importance that now it has to be. Is just maybe the only focus is on the price is okay, because it's the survival of the human race is at stake. But then you do have to make sure that you have some gold. People have to have some gold in their own personal possession, because then otherwise it won't be possible. And then also be very careful about this propaganda that is, like also these sudden crashes in the price of gold that scared a whole lot of people off. So we just have to be focused on the big picture, on the big plan. We see that the central banks are accumulating immense amount of gold. So there is the economic future will be based on gold. So I don't know when this, like in short, I don't know when and how this gold revaluation will take place. And Judy Sheldon proposed these gold-backed treasuries, which I think is a great solution. There is already a manual published by the Federal Reserve on how to handle these gold-backed treasuries. And I tell you for a fact, because I've been working for banks for 32 years. I quit in 2021. When the bank issues a manual, it's not make me believe. It's just to inform how operationally procedure is to be done, so that for the workers, when the rollout happens, they pick up the manual and they are instructed on how to act. So if the Federal Reserve issues a manual, it means they're ready. When they're going to say, okay, apply the rules on the manual, we don't know. But then I think is out of the question that a gold revaluation, because of these gold-backed treasuries, is going to happen and is probably imminent.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there that once the manual is written, it's not there for fun, it's there to be used. And we know that there's also the operational manuals on bank bail-ins. So they've told us, they've already warned us that in the crisis, the reset, that if your currency is in a bank, they're just going to take it legally and hand it over to the bank. And of course, if there's also a manual for gold revaluation, it's kind of like the writing's on the wall there. And I really thought you made a great point that when they do these things, they do it in an instant. You don't get warned beforehand. If you go back to April 1933, the newspaper front page said that you have to send your gold in. It was a confiscation, of course. And they said, oh, if you hand it over, you'll get the going rate. Otherwise, you was criminalized. Now, I think only 25% of Americans did do it. But my point is, it was immediate. It was Roosevelt who got into power, and then he immediately said, right, we need to recall the gold. And this was at the depths of the Great Depression, when people were already fatigued and there'd been many banking failures, and they got told that if they handed over their gold, it would help fix the situation. So many people fell for this trick. And it was a trick, because once all of the gold was gathered up, they devalued the dollar by increasing the price of gold. So this was the revaluation you just spoke of. And then in 1971, they did the exact same thing, but this time it wasn't American citizens. They'd already been defaulted on. Now it was foreign central banks. And they did just the same thing. Overnight, they said the US dollar is no longer convertible into gold. I think it was actually something that popped up in the middle of a TV show called Bonanza. And they also announced things like price controls and tariffs, which is kind of what we're seeing right now. So all of the ingredients are there. And yeah, I guess it is going to be done in an instant without people being forewarned. So maybe the July story did have some credibility, but I do think it's going to take a little bit longer personally. But I'd love to come back to this topic of gold revaluation in the future, because I think it's fundamental to what's happening right now. And personally, I do believe that they're going to have to reevaluate much higher. But now I wanted to move on to the second topic, Andrea, and it's somewhat related. You mentioned that I published today the article over on the PM Report, which listeners can go read in full if they want. It's available for everyone. But for the discussion, I just wanted to focus specifically on Tether, the stablecoin company's accumulation of gold, because actually the scale of Tether's gold acquisition is quite extraordinary. Let me just read you some of the numbers, Andrea, and then I'd love to get your take on what's going on. So Reuters reported that by March 2026, Tether is now sitting on roughly 154 tons of gold, which, to put into perspective, would place them top 20 amongst official gold holders globally if it were a central bank. And remember, Tether's a private for-profit company. It's not a central bank. Also, CoinDesk reported earlier this year that Tether has been buying gold at a pace of up to 2 tons per week, which is around $1 billion worth a month. And apparently, it's all being stored in Switzerland in a former nuclear bunker. We're not talking about some fringe crypto company here playing with gold. We're talking about one of the largest private issuers of digital dollars in the world, one that Donald Trump and the US are now planning to place at the nexus of the US economy by having them issue digital dollars and then buy US treasuries with their profits. So, really, this is an extension of the dollar Ponzi scheme. And now this company is becoming one of the largest private buyers of physical gold in the world. Andrea, what do you make of all this? Why do you think they're accumulating so much gold?
I can tell you for a fact, because I was talking to this Swiss bullion dealer who provides bullion for investors, for like institutional. So he was contacted personally by the Arduino, the CEO of Tether, and they desperately trying to buy all the gold they can get. Gold is so rare; is not that much. The Swiss bankers, since Trump election, they've been working like non-stop for 24 hours a day to just smelt gold and provide these gold bars, these high standard gold bars for these institutionals. There is no non-stop in the thirst for gold. And the only problem he was telling me, this bullion dealer, is that companies like Tether can only buy gold with the profits. So they cannot buy, but they wanted to buy more. They say no, we just sell crypto and buy gold, but it's not the Swiss gold companies. They don't allow that because there is a every transactions has to be connected to the legitimate beneficiary. So you cannot sell a crypto portfolio that is somebody else's money that you're managing. You cannot liquidate that to buy gold. So, but then the profits are directly connected to the company. So in that case, it can legally be done. But they, I tell you, Mike, and this is somewhat scary, that they won't buy a lot more gold than what they buy. So there is a big operation, and that could probably tie in into the gold revaluation and the monetary global monetary reset. I think you laid it all out perfectly in your article. Also, it is wrapped together in a majestical way. So I encourage everybody to print it, read it, study it, because that's the shape of the future. And congratulations, Mike. But I just wanted to share with you and with our listeners, the people that follow your channel, that it's a fact. This Tether is buying tons of gold, but they wish they could buy more. They just can't. And then there is only so much gold to buy, so they have to wait until also the gold is available. One other thing that is also scare me so much is how much gold is being sold through these we buy gold chains that spread out like mushrooms. You're talking about really tons of gold. And people desperate for the crisis, they go and they get rid of their used gold. They sell it into these shops, and it all goes to Switzerland. It all goes to this Swiss foundries, and then now we see also where it ends up. People selling their gold reserves, the jewels of the family, to fund these big monetary monsters that are shaping up the future of humanity. And it's something that makes me feel very sad to see that people lose whatever little gold they had in the house, and now once it's sold, it's not there anymore. People don't have. If a family has some gold, then he sells it, and all the gold is owned by Tether. Then what next? What next?
Yeah, that's fascinating, Andrea, because a lot of people have discussed that Tether is an extremely opaque company. Nobody has ever been able to audit independently their reserves. So we don't actually know what's backing the over $1 trillion worth of tokens or digital dollars. But I do think that this gold purchasing by Tether is legitimate because, of course, they've made so much profits over the last few years because of that very reason. They didn't have to be audited. So they was able to make extreme amounts of profits by minting these tokens at essentially no cost and then buying up all kinds of assets, including treasuries, Bitcoin, pumping the price of Bitcoin. Many people suspect that Tether's been behind some of those insane Bitcoin run-ups because, of course, you can mint Tether and then use them to literally buy Bitcoin. And people accept it as though it's a real dollar. So it's a very fascinating development, this gold part. And I was very interested to hear that you've spoken to somebody in the gold trade. What's really fascinating, though, is under the Genius Act framework, stable coins are literally going to become the US dollar system. They are supposed to be backed by approved reserves, which, of course, is mainly US treasuries, and Tether are now the 17th largest holder of US treasuries in the world. Where I think it becomes interesting is they've already got a tokenized gold product at Tether. It's called Tether Gold or XAUT, and I talk about this in the article. But right now, only 22 tons of Tether's 154 tons are being used to back XAUT, and the rest is inside Tether's broader reserve. So essentially, 15% of Tether's assets are now in gold. So I'm assuming that at some point, Tether's going to move to back all of their dollars with some kind of tokenized gold. It seems to me that's the direction of travel. Do you think that that's possible as well, Andrea, that they're going to present this to the public to give confidence in this digital dollar that this is a gold backed system? You should trust it like physical gold?
Yes, I think the public is perfectly has been perfectly prepared to accept this. The the fact that people won't won't even hear of real things anymore if it's not digital, if it's not virtual, they don't want it anymore. This is really horrible. People stop even making babies. So I think people will salivate of joy when this digital prison will be presented to them as a solution, because now the mental programming to create this slave system of control is being so perfection that people will accept it in the most joyful way, and this is quite scary. That's why I think then it is up to you, like whatever you prefer. If you like, there is this video of this lady that's got interviewed, and then the gentleman asked her, "What is it like to be homeless in Portland?" And she said, "Oh, it's a piece of cake. They keep you on the street doing nothing. They give you all the food and all the intoxicating drugs you want. What can you hope of better life?" People already prepare that is a bliss to just be out of the game and be like with this universal basic income. Whatever, whatever is digital don't require any effort, any thinking, any responsibility. So this is the it plays a big part in this reset, whatever the action that has been done to the brains of people, so they're even complicating so much the context of money. They who really understands tokenized system, stable coin, this complex even regular finance, like how the derivatives and all that. People don't wanna understand. They want a quick solution and a quick fix, and if that quick fix is digital and it provides the possibility of spending and buying stuff, people will gladly accept it and they will call it a victory. So I think the most scariest part of this whole um, this whole scheme is the manipulative part of it that will make people happy to accept their slavery.
I'm looking at Tether Gold website right now. So this is their tokenized gold, and it says Gold Made Easy is a digital token backed by physical gold. From ancient civilizations, humans have used gold as money and as a store of value. Since then, and especially in times when the overall macro market has been in distress, gold has been a hedge. And it goes on to talk about gold's long history as a store of value, an excellent hedge against inflation, a safe portfolio diversification asset. Andrea, they're saying all of the right things, and then they go on to claim that Tether Gold is like gold, but easier and better. It's easier to transport, easier divisibility, 24/7 trading with ease, easily redeemable. So they're saying all the right things, but when you peer beneath the surface of this, to redeem your tokenized gold for physical gold, you need a minimum of 430 tokens, which is 430 ounces of gold. So that's around $1.7 million worth at present. So to even
Yeah,
attempt to redeem your gold, you need 1.7 million. Now they don't say that on the front page of the website, and you can only redeem to a location in Switzerland, and they have to
yeah.
approve it first. So this sounds nothing like the benefits of owning physical gold, does it, Andrea?
No, it's fantastic though. You have to give it to these people. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I I hope we got our point across, Mike, today with this show. I think people that follow your page are brilliant enough to understand. I don't. We don't need to like comment on something so evident.
Sadly, I think there's going to be many people taken in by this. But one thing I know from my study of monetary history is they never place gold back into the monetary system before the collapse. It's always after the end of the old system. So
Yes,
any
yes,
cynical attempt to put gold into the system through tokenized gold or digital assets, I think that is to try and lock people into the old system. It's not creating a new system. And so that's why I think this whole Tether thing is very misleading. And I would definitely urge listeners to take a read of that article and then also check out Andrea's work because Andrea, it was actually you who inspired me to write that article. So thank you for the
uh,
inspiration because you mentioned
no,
Tether recently and pointed me
yeah.
in that direction again. So I had another look and that's where the article came from. But before we finish this first episode, Andrea, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, it's funny how you say you inspired me. I inspired you, and you did all the work. So, Mike, thank you for doing all the hard work of
Well,
writing.
I appreciate the inspiration.
That's
I'm a big
you,
fan of your own
you,
newsletter, so that's why I'm really excited for this joint project. I think it will direct some of my readers and listeners over to you, and hopefully some of yours will come across as well, and we can both share information because that's the most important thing right now is to understand what's happening and also just to make sense of some of these illusions or deceptions. And I think th're only going to get greater as this financial system circles the
yes,
drain.
yes, exactly. And they own all the media, all the technology, all the control of everything. So they can do practically whatever they want. It's just up to us to stay, in control of our knowledge, and that can only be done through channels like yours. And then you know how, like I invite people to subscribe and to pledge also a paid subscription because how much is worth to somebody who actually saves your life. That is what you're doing, and so congratulations for your immensely valuable work of in the field of the knowledge, Mike.
Well, that is extremely kind of you, Andrea. And yeah, I would definitely recommend listeners check out your book as well, because these topics are the most important topics in finance right now. And I don't think many people are going to be sharing them with you because they don't understand what's happening or why it's happening. They think gold is an inert commodity, but it's not, it's money. And it will end up back at the heart of the financial system. So, me and Andrea are going to be making sense
Oh,
of this as it all transpires. I will sign off there by saying my name is Parallel Mike. You can find me over on the PM Report on Substack. That's where most of my work is housed. And Andrea, just remind us one more time where listeners can find you.
yes, just find me on my Substack. I'm also on social media. Just type my name, and I have a page with my name and author, followed by author, where I publish my ideas. But the best way to find me is on Substack. That's where I share my articles. The My Substack is paid, but I write articles for free, and so you should subscribe it. And but whatever comes from the sales of my book and my Substack, I all donate it all to charity. So it is, I don't do this for a profit. My work in the field of knowledge don't want to be like making money out of it. So, but I think it's worth participating. So we all share something with the less needy, and I've been able to deploy some really generous donations here in the Bahamas to the poor and for projects of solidarity. And we do it all together. and this becomes something that this community of people like us, Mike, can share and create something good for the others, so that in these times of widespread evil, doing something good is always I don't know, a small fight every one of us can do to create a better world.
Okay,
Thank you,
Andrea,
Mike.
thanks so much for that. I look forward to speaking again on the second episode, which we will be planning in the coming weeks. But until then, Andrea, have a fantastic summer. I know you're traveling back to your home country, Italy, so have a great vacation. And I look forward to speaking to you next time.
See you soon. Bye, Mike.